right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. Back again this week to talk more Season 1 of Agent Carter. We have passed the halfway point. We are now on our last 4 episodes of the season. Today, we're going to be talking about episodes 5 and 6, The Iron Ceiling and Sin to Air. Both of these episodes are pretty villain heavy. We get to learn a lot more about what's going on with Dottie. We get to start off with, we're just going to give a quick summary of each episode, and then we'll get into it. So our first episode, The Iron Ceiling, and by the way, thanks for watching, everybody. I've been so hyped up planning how to talk about this. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you guys in the comment section and people that choose to watch these videos for Agent Carter. So I realize it's been a little while since this show's been over, but I think we're swinging back around to relevance. I think this show is going to start picking up more audience members probably in the next year or so. And I'm surprised that that it hasn't been talked about more during COVID. It feels like everything's been talked about during COVID because everybody's watched everything. I feel like everything that you could possibly watch that's on a streaming service has gotten some kind of treatment, and I don't know if Agent Carter really has. But anyway, The Iron Ceiling, and also I'm joined by Corrie Shoemaker, as always, the person with all the passion and way better notes than me, talking about this. Hi, Corrie. How are you today? I'm all over the place.
I even have my Christmas tree with me.
Very, very festive. We're starting our holiday reviews on Friday.
Nice.
But they're going to be a mixed bag. We will be discussing good ones. We're also going to be discussing bad ones, and we're going to be discussing ones that take place at Christmas time, just not necessarily about Christmas. And we are going to do It's a Wonderful Life.
Yay!
Because I've always wanted to, now that I see it's on Amazon Prime, we're going to talk about it. But that's for another video. So, Iron Ceiling, talking about the Iron Ceiling. So, in this episode, we get to see that Black Widow program, pre-Natasha Romanoff, where the girls are all kept. This is really dark. Like they're really good in this at not showing how dark it is. They cut away. They kind of shy away from a little bit of the more brutal violence, but we get to see the beginning of like where Dottie came from, knowing that this is where Natasha came from. But the bulk of this episode then is Peggy convincing the SSR and Dooley to let her go on the mission to go to Russia to find out what's been going on over there after Dooley learned about, they're still trying to find out about that battle and Stark and what his role is and all this. And her getting, with her connections to the Howling Commandos, which was really fun to see. Getting some of our actors back from Captain America: The First Avenger. The Howling Commandos aren't the most popular characters in the Marvel universe, but if you like Cap, you like these characters like Dum Dum Dugan, played really great by Neil McDonough, who I've loved since Band of Brothers. I love that actor. Whenever he shows up in something, he always elevates the material. In fact, I wish that he would get, they would have used him more throughout the Marvel universe a little bit, even if it was just like flashbacks for Cap. But we get to see them going in and helping her get this mission done. We get to know more about Jack and his backstory and how he's not the hero that he's been playing himself out to be. Meanwhile, you've got Dooley back at home doing his own research into Leviathan and the technology and the typewriter, and we've got Souza finally figuring out who the blonde was. We all know it's Peggy Carter. Mm-hmm. But there's that's just a summary. There's lots in between with Sin to Air. Now, Sin to Air, we get to find out about the recruitment process of Leviathan. We find out that we get to know like the spy that came with them back from Russia to America, who is willing to help. He wants to really break down Leviathan. And I had completely forgotten this until like even because Dottie in this, she kills a dentist. I don't know why at first. I
Just doesn't like this.
I was really to watch because I'm glad sometimes to forget details in something.
Yeah.
The way that we find out that he's still spying for Russia. She's, not there to shoot him. There's a lot of tension in this episode because this is also the episode where, because Souza's figured it out, Peggy's world comes crumbling down around her.
Yep.
Everything, as much as we root for her, the people that, the way she went about this, no one's going to see it as anything but treason or possible treason, and they're all feeling kind of like dupes by the end of it. So that's, and Dottie, is revealed to Peggy at the last moment, too late, that what she really is. We also get a couple of good moments with Angie in here.
Yeah.
But mostly it's about, her, the two spies working against, finding out that they're both in cahoots, and Peggy's world crumbling around her. And now not really having anything to do until next episode, where they end at the beginning of the interrogation. So knowing that that's basically the summation of those two episodes, I'm going to pass it over to you, Corrie, and let you jump in at the beginning of the Iron Ceiling and how you want to talk, and I will respond to your comments.
All right, let's go. So beginning of the Iron Ceiling, which obviously is a take on the glass ceiling, right? But we have the opposite in Russia, where they're training these young girls who I believe are orphans in like espionage. And what I guess was the most disturbing is that they're using American, I guess, idealism to shape and mold them into spies who could pass off as an all American girl, which is what we see in Dottie. One of the symbolisms that I liked that we saw come up multiple times was the bread. How Dottie uses the breaking of the bread, the sharing of a meal to create a friendship, but we know that then becomes betrayal later, because in the sparring match where they're being trained to kill as young girls, she kills her friend and snaps her neck in the sparring match. Which, I mean, I had to rewatch that a couple times to be like, oh my word, did she actually kill that girl? Like, I can't believe that. And to me, I immediately thought of the significance of betrayal with bread with like the Last Supper, and how Jesus like breaks the bread, shares it with the 12 disciples, and then says, one of you will betray me. But it's neat that it also comes up later when she's having a meal with Peggy at the automat, and she's like, oh, here, have some of my bread. I can never finish the whole thing.
Yep.
And in a way that's linking back to her childhood, but it also kind of cues the viewer in that, oh, Dottie's going to betray Peggy. She's not who she seems. She's offering friendship, but don't trust her. Don't trust her. So that was kind of neat. They're using Disney movies, Snow White, to teach them English and proper accent and tone. But when Peggy and the Howling Commandoes break into that location, they find that they're actually brainwashing them or implanting messages and ideas into their minds. She rolls back the tape and it says instill fear in Russian. And I just like this innocent, sort of wide-eyed Dottie that we see, and then we can see how quickly she can turn on a dime from being like, okay, yeah, thanks, Peggy, and then she's killing somebody 2 seconds later.
The bread thing really got to me, like, and then the callback for it was just great. Again, like I said, it was really dark, and I mean they cut away, but we know, like, you see her just showing like that was her friend. This was someone that she probably wasn't supposed to have that bread. She hid it. She had it hidden. She was giving it to someone else, but then how they're training removes all elements of emotion and attachment and any kind of feeling that she would have had for that person, they have no qualms. Because, you know, just because Dottie did the killing doesn't mean that if the role was reversed,
Yeah.
you know, it's just she lucked out. Was it meant to go that way? I don't know, but I think that they, you know, they reward that kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have probably seen it as that girl should have known better. Like she should have tried to get out of it. You know, like she died because she, you know, probably had feelings for, she probably didn't know that that was how far it was going to get taken.
Or she just wasn't trained enough, so she didn't make the cut. So if you don't, you know, you need to know your training. This is, you know, it's very much, it echoes Hydra training. I mean, right now I'm watching season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I'm like, wow, this is so Hydra. It's not even funny. And just this sort of, how much do we expect a child at that age to really have that much control? You know, I would expect them to be like crying or whatever, but perhaps that happened in the first week, and then those that couldn't make it, like, were removed from the program. You know, and they've been trained from childhood, and we know that Peggy notes that she's looking for the scar marks from the handcuffs because she knows the girls were handcuffed to their beds, which is also totally freaky and weird and like creepy, you know, handcuffed to your bed. And at the end of the episode, we see Dottie handcuffing herself to her own bed before she goes to sleep. So it's been so ingrained in her as a child that in order for her to sleep properly, she has to be handcuffed to bed, which is a whole nother level of twisted.
Yeah, because she doesn't, it's just her normal.
Yeah.
It probably does help her sleep. It probably does help her feel more comfortable, almost like a touchstone of like, you know, if she were to wake up without it, you know, she probably wouldn't feel safe. And that's so bizarre. You know, and yeah, the way you commented about how she can turn it on a dime. I mean, she, as soon as Peggy walks out of that, you know, that diner, she's and I the way she like stares daggers at her. I
Yeah.
always want to see a scene where some character is like that, like, and then somebody like at the table next door is like, "Hey, are you mad at that person? Because you're making a really weird. You guys were just looked like you were friends." Like, I
Yeah.
want to see somebody actually call out that character in an unexpected way to like, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Why do you all of a sudden look like that?"
And the fact that she is so well trained at what she does, like Peggy doesn't pick up on it at all. And us, when we're watching it as the audience member, I'm like, come on, that was totally an obvious knockover of the purse. But we're thinking that because we know who Dottie is, right?
Yeah.
And Peggy, because she's seen how well Dottie presents this character. I mean, talking about actors, right? Angie's a good actor. Angie says Peggy's a good actor. Dottie is a consummate actress because she is constantly being something she's not, right? Whatever the situation demands, she will become it. She will morph into what you need. And we see that also with what happens with Howard, where Peggy says it has to be a really high level operative that could have gotten to Howard to have access to the vault. And we know that high level operative is Dottie. But back to the purse, she knocks the purse over, takes the keys, and we see that immediate change, you know, whereas before she's like, oh, I want to go see all these places in New York. She's listing all the places, and you know, she plays that role so well of, you know, okay, I guess I'm going to Brooklyn. How do I get to Brooklyn? like you're just like, oh my word. Just look at the map, right? But she probably knows New York better than a New Yorker because she's.
Oh yeah.
And then we have that throwback to Captain America, right? I wrote down this quote where, you know, Peggy's giving Dottie advice, and she says, you need to get to know the real people with real jobs, not the phony, superficial people who pervade this city. And then she rips up Jarvis's card. So that's like a kind of nod at how upset she is with Howard and how upset she was with Jarvis at this point in the episode. And then she comments about you should start with Brooklyn, get to know the people. You know, Dottie really wants to see the Statue of Liberty, Peggy says what she represents, the spirit of Lady Liberty, is found in its people. And Dottie goes, "Oh, wow, Peg, you really sound like Captain America there." Right? So she's picking up on that, but we also see Peggy is very much starting to mimic and sort of express Steve's own ideas. And anyway, so that's what I had on Dottie and Peggy in the little automat scene.
Next up, I guess we have, talking about the Jarvis and Peggy, they have a brief little moment, where she, he's happy to see her, but for her, it's all business. It's because she still feels that betrayal of, you guys knew, you could have told me, and you didn't. We still kind of run into that whole servants to Stark and him being to Stark, her to being SSR.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to break his confidence with Stark. She doesn't want to completely break her the confidence of the SSR. They're both in these kind of weird, awkward positions, and they're they're mad at each other when they really shouldn't be. Even because they're both doing things against the wishes of the other in some ways. She's kind of, to get what she, to do the right thing, she is, completely going against the SSR, and in ways that Howard doesn't know. She's gotten, Jarvis to go against some of the things that Stark wouldn't like him doing. It's kind of interesting seeing them be mad at each other, or him. He's more trying to fix their relationship, but her being mad at him, I kind of feel like she's a little bit mad at the wrong person, even though I know that he's got his role to play. Like, she does feel like he needs to own up a little bit to it, but I don't know. I think it's just because I like Jarvis so much that I know that he's not trying to hurt her. But he is maybe mansplaining or trying to protect her as a man a little bit too much.
I think with Jarvis, it's just that, they're both working for people in an authoritative position that they don't 100% agree with. But in order for them to get the job done, they kind of have to work for people whose methods and approaches they're not too keen on. And in order for Jarvis to keep his job, he has to function within the sort of limitations of what Howard will permit him to do. And the same thing with Peggy. She's trying to break out of those limitations, but she also can only do so much. And so they're both trying to get to the same goal, but they're going about it in different ways. And the fact that they kept information from Peggy, I think that's what bothers her, because she's in a position where she doesn't know who she can trust. She's going out of her way and risking quite a lot for Howard. And she feels like she's just another one of his girls that he's using. She talks about, like, I'm his new fancy toy, and she doesn't want that role. She's and I love this kind of conversation they have back and forth where Jarvis really calls it as it is. Like, you think you're doing this great job, but you're basically in the trenches shoveling muck just like me, trying to do something good when there's work surrounded by dirt, right? And Jarvis, he's trying to win her back, and he says, Mr. Stark has only the greatest admiration, and Peggy interrupts him, for himself. And Jarvis like, but he's a good man, and Jarvis isn't wrong. Howard is essentially a good man. He just doesn't use the best methods, and he doesn't approach things the right way. Like, if push comes to shove, he'll probably do the right thing. We know that he gave up that 7-figure army contract because he was upset about what was going on there, and we'll find that out in later episodes. But we know that he kind of has a limit that he'll go to, and then he's like, no, I don't cross that line. But Peggy says, he used me, he uses you, whether you choose to see it or not. And then Jarvis's response is, what does the SSR have in you? It's kind of like tit for tat. Oh, yeah, he uses me. Well, what about you? What about you at the SSR? An agent finely trained and skilled in the art of fetching coffee. Like, ouch, burn, right? These men, your colleagues, they don't see you. Do you honestly think they'll change their minds? And Peggy says, I expect I will make them. And it's neat that this is actually the episode where she does that.
Yeah.
By the end of the episode.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So this is where we should get into the code breaking stuff and how she gets into the mission. So I know you got a lot on the code breaking stuff.
Do.
That was really cool.
It was neat. Did you want to chime in on that first, or
no? I'll let you talk about the code breaking. I'll.
Okay. Awesome. Well, what I loved about it is that she's using her decoding skills from the war, and this is an opportunity where they actually get to see how good she is at her job. Not that they haven't seen her in the past, but she's been kind of limited in terms of what she can do in the field, and now this is her job, her expertise on her turf, right? So she can kind of do that, and she also gets to show up the male decoder that they bring in, who's supposed to be the expert, who can't figure it out. We also find out she knows Russian because she's like, did you account for the code being written in Russian? And the guy's like, no. Right? And so she mentions this thing called the Turing Method, which refers to Alan Turing, who was the man that cracked the Enigma machine during World War II, which we mentioned last episode. He was a brilliant mathematician, and he worked for the British government in code and cipher part-time at a school that was teaching code and cipher. And then when World War II broke out, then he started working full-time with them. And so Peggy says, oh, I saw this at Bletchley. And what she's referring to is that in 1939, Alan Turing took up a full-time role at Bletchley Park in Buckinghamshire, which is where a top secret work was carried out to decode military codes by the Germans and the Allies. So Peggy was literally in the center of this top secret training facility that was working on coding. And like, she knows this approach that Alan Turing discovered. So like, she's in the center of the epicenter of what was going on in coding, which is totally awesome. And so that's why she's able to look at this code and figure out what it is, which is awesome. But I guess what drove me nuts the whole time is the whole time she's doing this, and you're like, yes, Peggy, go, show them you can do this. Jack's just completely undermining her the whole time. And it's like, Jack either has a serious problem with Peggy, or he just has a serious problem with women in general, because every time she was proving herself, he was constantly undercutting her. Like, he has something about, if this is real and she's reading the message right, and Peggy's like, she is trying to concentrate, thank you, and she's decoding this thing, right? And so, and we see that through the whole episode, and I'm sure we can talk about Jack specifically with regards to that.
Yeah, I feel like this reminded the way Jack was being, right? It's really laying it on to what eventually will bury him later in the episode when he talks about it. And I don't know if you've seen it, but like, it makes me think of and it's just because of like the comeuppance kind of, that somebody who just can't stop spewing out poisonous words, just, like and then paying for it later reminds me of Joffrey in season 3 of Game of Thrones, or was it season 4, who just is allowed to just keep saying the most horrible things to the people around him that just kind of undercut and undermine and make people feel bad, and then in the end pays for it. And that's what I feel like happens here, where they let him just be as big of a jerk as possible, so that when he finally reveals what he reveals, it's not just it's humiliating. It's a humiliation.
Yeah.
Really. because he has to finally he is so high on his own petard. He's got his he's such a fraud. He is such a fraud that to cover up his being a fraud, he has to make sure that everyone below him, not just Peggy, but Souza and everybody else, the only one who escapes it is Dooley, because he's the one he has to prove that he's not a fraud.
Yeah.
And so he just does this to everyone on down the line. So it makes it even sweeter, because I don't feel sorry for him later. I don't. I enjoyed it, even though it's a terrible and sad story. It also just proves even more about his character.
Yeah.
To me. But yeah, this is where she shows them up about the code breaking, but still, she wants in. They won't let her in. Yeah, great job. You did this one thing right. And
yeah, and then it's
such a shame that they had to write it in, or they felt like they had to write it in, that we need one more linchpin for her to get on this team. But it is the way to get to the Howling Commandos. So it's great that she has connections and we get to see these characters. I just wish that they had gotten, where they'd just been maybe if they had just written, them, if somebody else could have come to that conclusion instead of just completely, because I just feel like this whole episode was just, until we got there to Russia, it was just more, you can't do this. I don't want to be responsible for losing a woman in,
yeah.
I get why Dooley says that, but at the same time,
it's very realistic for the times, because it would have been, okay, thank you for your help with this. Now let the boys handle the problem. Step aside. So it is very realistic for the times that they wouldn't trust a woman to take on that role, even knowing her history. She's arguing, Jack and her are arguing with Chief Dooley about, she's saying, you've seen my record, you've seen blah, blah, blah. And Dooley's like, yes, I have, in my office. Let's discuss this. But really, I understand where Dooley is coming from, because what she's asking is something that would not be considered the norm at that time. During war, even during World War II, women didn't go into combat. They were involved in other areas. They flew planes to drop-off points, but they were not fighting on the front lines. That just didn't happen. So the fact that Peggy was with the Howling Commandos, a little bit of fictional blurring of the lines, but okay, we'll accept it. Taking into fact that she was involved with coding and she was a spy. Yes, there were women spies, so okay, that's okay. But
she was involved with the whole Project Rebirth. She was in, so she's kind of this liaison that was also, that's also a spy, that's also capable. She's been around people that understand her capabilities rather than undercutting them.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we see the difference between the guys in the Howling Commandos who know her.
Which was such a breath of fresh air.
I know, right? Anyway, I want to go back though, just so we don't miss a side note. I like that Souza actually knew some information about Leviathan and was able to add to the conversation. He says that Leviathan's an Old Testament sea monster that apparently types. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
He has a sense of humor even with all this going on. And then, let's talk about the conversation between Jack and Dooley, and then the resulting conversation when Peggy's part of the team. I just said, Jack obviously has something either against Peggy going to Russia, or he just doesn't want, he doesn't want her on the team. He's undercutting her authority, her legitimacy. He uses sexist jokes and insinuations. And I just noted, it's a good thing Peggy has a brother. She's like, there's nothing you can say that I haven't argued with my brother about in the past. I know what guys are like. Just stuff a sock in it. She can deal with it. She's not, some flower. But Jack, he's talking about the bulletproof vest they're getting. And he's like, I don't think they had, 28 or 38, 22, 38 in mind for these. And she's like, you obviously aren't good at math, because his measurements, yeah, no, ladies aren't built like that. They're not, you know. And then he makes the one joke he made where I just wanted to punch him. Was it when he says, "Yeah, sure, you're used to serving under a captain."
Yeah.
And I was just like, really? Really? You're gonna pull the sex joke in relation with Peggy and Steve, Captain America? You're really gonna not only insult Peggy, you're gonna insult Steve's memory?
Yeah. It's why it's been hard for me as an audience member to know that this is historically accurate. And so you go, well, that's how it would be, I have to be fine with that. But as an audience member at the same time, I'm like so disgusted, like all the time when I'm watching this, because I just want to yell at the people that like that behave this way, like I just want to. I can't imagine what it was like. I mean, we talk about how bad it is now still. Just to be so openly sexist is just so mind-boggling. And it, again, I've said this before, it's not that long ago.
Yeah. In 1940s, 1950s. Like, I mean, she has great comeback. She says things like, "I'm just not used to serving with boys," right?
Yeah.
She like undercuts him. And then Jack claims that the men did all the work when he's talking with Dooley, and Peggy's like, "I served alongside them." He's like, "Yeah, with a lot of good men," right? And so he's completely undercutting whatever she's done.
And again, the more that he says that, though, see, making him like the men did the work when he didn't even
do it.
Like he did no real, like he just keeps making himself, again, like I said, he's undercutting her and everyone to hide his own failures. And it's just so like unbelievable. I mean, and then playing the trick on poor Souza so that he, that he would see her in her negligence, her, I don't know what that is. Yeah. What is that called?
It's a slip. She's wearing a slip and then a bra. Yeah, but
we needed that scene though, just so that he could see the two dots on her shoulder, which was very important for the end of this episode.
And that's why he pulls up the file. But I mean, yeah, there's so many things that happen. Like when they're doing the drop and he's nervous. Again, Peggy she always takes the high road. She always she's like, "I'm not going to bend to your level." So she asked him, is this your first drop? Just take a breath. And he's like, "Thanks, Carter. I already have a mother. What I need right now are soldiers," which is, again, a gender bias, right? He doesn't see her as a soldier. He sees her as someone he has to babysit. And that's what the other guys talk about in the locker room, right? The one guy says, I don't need to babysit some dame. And Jack says, if you don't want their spot on the team, there's 5 other guys willing to take your spot, right? And I love how Peggy also uses her knowledge and her intelligence to counteract the arguments that she shouldn't go. Like, Jack's saying, "I've been there. I've served X many years. You need boots on the ground. You need brawn, not brain." And Peggy has this great quote about, "Do you know what the smell of herring in the air means in the middle of the Belarusian summer? Wind blowing in from the Baltic. It means a snowstorm in July. And if you can smell the wind, it means you have 30 minutes to find shelter and build a fire before you die of hypothermia in the morning. I know this because I have been there," right? And then Jack, just as only Jack could, is like, "Yeah, now I know that too." Like a kid stealing the answer off of the other person on the test, right? Like it's just, and then Peggy has to say, "Well, because I know how to decode this, and if they're using the Turing system in Russian, you'll need me to decode something." So she has to argue her case and prove that, and even that isn't enough, because then she has to go and call in the 107th. If I could get the 107th, would you let me on the team, right? Yes, of course, but that's impossible. And the only reason they agree to it is because they think it's impossible. And of course, she pulls in the team.
Which does lead us to her getting over there and meeting the Howling, re-teaming up with the Howling Commandos, and how the dynamic of the rest of the episode completely changes. Right as soon as they get done with the drop and they're on the ground and they see them, I mean, it's the Jack and his team minus Peggy become the babes in the woods. They look to her then, and they treat them like they don't know what they're doing, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see them put in their place. The rest of this just kind of pans out. This is real soldiering. This is what she's been doing before she got to the SSR. And this is what they've been doing since the end of World War II. And it's like she just slips back into it like no problem. And it's Jack who doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how the Howling Commandos, like Dum Dum, just like Peggy. He gives her a big hug and he's like, I missed you. And she's automatically a part of one of the boys, and the team that she's come with. I think Jack's like, you're Dum Dum Dugan. You served with Captain, and the other guy's like, you served with Captain America. And then Dum Dum's like, yeah, but not as long as she did. And I just like, yes, I love it. Dum Dum, I could kiss you. Because he recognizes her value in their group. And he's like, yeah, sure, I served with Cap, but she knows more than I do about Cap. So why are you like idiots not asking her? She's been with you for how many years now? So.
Yeah, this is why I wish that they had gotten like more screen time or their own little mini series, or just, Peggy and the Howling Commandos after Cap went into the ice. I would have loved to see, because I know on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. there's that one little brief scene of them with the corpse of the blue alien. I can't remember why am I not being able to remember the name of those aliens? But the Kree.
Yeah. And then
that was just too brief. It was like kind of the preemptive, like this is what the show is going to be like, and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. But I wanted more of this. If the show had gone on longer, man, would that have been fun?
And in season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we have the opening episode, because I just watched it, is where Peggy and the Howling Commandos are commandeering all the Hydra artifacts, and they meet Daniel Whitelaw. So
that's the scene I was talking about.
Yeah, so it's fun to see those little blips, right? I also like that Dum Dum and Peggy talked about Steve very briefly when they're sharing the drink together.
Yeah.
And, he says something about, you used to be fun, and she's like, yeah, well,
what
happened? He's like, I miss him too. So they don't even have to talk about it. Like, he knows her so well that he knows what she's thinking even before she says it,
Yeah. So they get to the training school where we get to see what they've been actually doing to the kids with the subliminal messages, and the handcuffs on the beds. And we find one of the girls still there, which was a little weird. Like, I guess she somehow got left behind conveniently, or maybe she escaped, or and she just kind of stayed there, or they don't really explain it.
Didn't Peggy later say that she thought that girl was left there to kill them, because she said the size of the gun was small? It was designed for a child or a small female hand.
Well, that was what she was talking about, the death of Krasinski. When they were trying to figure out who the spy was in America, when they were talking about earlier, like that's one thing we didn't talk about was them train. It'll be coming up in the next episode about what they talk about when they come back here about the spies and how they don't get noticed. But the girl, she's there, and again, they should have had you see a child, you don't think of anything, like there's stories of in Vietnam, children with grenades that would roll up on soldiers and blow them up, because people don't see it, like what they talk about in the next episode about not noticing women. It's the same with children. suspect them to be bad or or trained to be, to be your enemy. And she, like she gets the drop on them, kills 2 people. Yeah, I think she kills 2 people. She kills one of the Howling Commandos and shoots
Lee, kills Lee.
Yeah, shoots Lee, and I thought, oh wait, no, it was just him. The other guy dies later. I thought that was showing, like, really cementing these kids are deadly at this age. Imagine what they're like when they grow up.
Yep. Yeah.
And this is where we find the scientists, the one who I like how they portray this, that the really smart scientist, right? He's the one that's kind of gonzo, who really wants to get out, and the other guy talking, I'm like, they've done all this to him, and he's the calmer one. Mm-hmm. It fools you for later.
Yeah.
What's going on, because when they get stuck in that firefight, it's the one that you thought really needed their help, the one that would be most helpful, is the one who literally tries to give himself up to them to not die, and the other guy, is it him that shoots him? Was it the other Russian that shoots him? I thought it was, because doesn't he say, I'm sorry?
I'm not sure. I'd have to rewatch it again.
Somebody shoots him, but he says, I'm sorry, like I didn't, I think he might have shot him, because I think that once he did that, he was like, well, he's not useful, but we don't know that, like.
I wonder if they shot him to keep him quiet. Like, I wonder if the guy that was kind of not
with this moment
wasn't even involved. Like, maybe he was just a pawn that was brought into the equation to be a body, and then as soon as they're getting out, they just shoot him so he can't.
Because they don't want Americans to get their hands on him, because if he's smart enough to build this stuff, they don't want him building for anybody but Russia. So right. They took their opportunity to just X him out.
Remove him, and or they're worried he'll talk.
Yeah. Right. So they convinced the other spy to come back to America with them. Meanwhile, you have Dooley and Souza back in America doing their thing. Now, I liked this mainly just nerdy-wise, because this is where we get this scene in the bar with the actor John Glover, who played Lionel Luthor on Smallville all those years. He's a tremendous actor. I think he was also in Gremlins 2, the new batch. I could go on. I won't. John Glover's a great character actor. He's in one scene. I was just like, man, they didn't even have, this could have gone to any actor. I really like this whole thing where they're talking about what happened, and we get Stark, hearing about Stark and everything, and about the, not taking the money. What are your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that, he's a New York Times reporter, and so he's one of the contacts that Dooley has, one of the old school contacts. And he says he already wrote an entire story about this, but the editor was too scared to publish it, so he killed the story. And he's able to provide a bit of information, Stark was involved. But what I liked is that he implies that there's more to the story. He says something like there's more going on to the story. And he doesn't really think Howard is, the bad guy in this. Like, he wanted to do more research into it. And that gets Dooley thinking that maybe Howard's being set up. Maybe there's something else going on. It's not as clean cut as it looks. And then we later have a conversation between Jarvis and Dooley, where he comes up to him and says something about, there's 3 sides to every story, Mr. Jarvis. Your side, my side, and the truth. Like, I'm not going on a witch hunt. I just want to hear what's going on. So that's a real change. Not necessarily a change in Dooley's character, but we start to see where he's smart, see why he's the chief again, see that he's open to looking at alternative answers. He's not the jack that's going to go in and be like, this is obviously what the solution is, arrest that person, and then not look into it any further. Dooley as much as he doesn't like Howard Stark, he's not the kind of guy that's going to put the wrong person behind bars, because he wants to find the right person who's responsible for this, and he realizes how important this is. And
now, yeah, before we forget, I almost passed it up. You would have reminded me. I know it. We got to talk about Jack's confession.
Yes.
So why don't you start tackling that? I'll chime in.
Yeah. So, well, the reason that confession happens is because during that shootout with the Russians, Jack freezes.
Yep.
And they're, Peggy's on the radio. At first I was like, how is she talking to him? Because I couldn't see a radio. And then the next shot, it showed her holding something. And she's calling Dum Dum. And she's like, I'm going to be very cross in a minute if you're not here with my exit plan. Right. And everybody's being shot. And Lee's already been shot. Another member has been shot from the Howling Commandos. And Jack just goes into terror mode. Like, he's hiding. And Peggy's calling him, Jack, come on, we need to go. Jack, come on. And he's just not responding. She has to go across enemy fire, snap him out of it, and get him out of there. And so it's kind of the first time Peggy sees the real Jack. And her response isn't to be mad at him or belittle him or be like, ha, you've been, talking yourself up. She feels for him, and she says something like, everybody freezes up. The important point is that you snapped out of it and you got moving, right? Get moving, keep going. And his response is, he tells her that this whole Navy Cross award thing was completely wrong, that he thought the Japanese were coming in to attack. They were actually coming in to surrender with a white flag. He didn't see it in time. He shot them all. And then, instead of admitting that, he buries the flag, he hides it, and then he's given this Navy Cross for bravery, which he has carried the guilt of that ever since. And he tells her, everybody thinks I'm this guy that I never was, and every day it gets harder and harder to live with it. I've been trying to tell that story since I came home from the war. And Peggy says, well, you just did. So
yeah, I know that it's supposed to make me feel bad for him. And the only thing that it makes me think about that, and I'll be honest, is the fact that men can go through these things, and because of the time period, and even now, they feel they can't tell the truth. They feel they still have to be that masculine model of a man, to not admit that they're anything but the tip top of manliness, that they'll be mocked or made fun of, like Souza, and it just proves, like, on one side, I understand that. I understand it. But the thing is like, you still are making a choice. Everybody makes a choice. You could choose to be what I consider a real man and own up to it. But he's been living this lie. And so it undercuts for me just my sympathy for the character. Just because he let it go on this long. Now, without these stories, you don't have the drama. You don't get the comeuppance. You don't get to have all these moments that real people have. I'm sure there are plenty of people that have his story.
Yeah.
Or something similar to his story. So I do get it. I do, like, but it's still just, I think I just can't do it. I can't 100% sympathize with him. But it's her character. It's her character that always stands above, like even, when I say, like, oh man, I myself want to, like, rise above the occasion, but I just can't always get there. But Peggy Carter, it's nice that it's a fictional character. She always does. She's almost like Superman in that way, of always seeing the bright and the hopefulness around her, the same as Captain America type of character. That just, she has faults. She has, she doesn't always make the right decisions, all this stuff. But in the end, she's always still there for somebody that normally people wouldn't be. And that is, like, such a high watermark that it's I try to remember, Rob, she's a fictional character. You don't have to live up to that.
What would Peggy do? What would Peggy do? I think,
Do as Peggy says.
yeah, I love that line. Right?
It's in here.
He's like, I can't. What would Cap say if I left his best girl behind? Right. So they all know that Peggy is Cap's best girl, right?
Right.
And she's like, he would stay, do as Peggy says. She's like, just stop trying to be heroic and macho. Just get the gun and get us out of here, you numbskull, right? But I think the issue you're having with Jack is that he has the opportunity to make the right decision going forward, and instead of doing that and owning up and being courageous, which takes a lot of courage, he chooses to continue living this lie because he's afraid of what will happen. And we see that even when he tells Peggy, he doesn't change because, spoiler, at the end of the season 1, he again takes credit for something that isn't his.
Which kind of like swings, we should swing into the ending of this and into the next episode, where he does bring her, offer to tell her you can come out for drinks with us, showing some level of recognition. But again, it's just that much. It's all he's, it's as far as he can go yet.
He does admit that Peggy's good at her job. Like, he has that section where he talks to her and says, I froze up. You did practically everything there. And then later when he's talking to the chief, he does give her credit. He says something about, she says, like, Jack and the team did something, and then he corrects her and says, we did it together. So, he's starting to learn slowly. A few little points that we missed while we were going through. There's no women's change room at the SS.
Yeah, all the way down, she'd have to go to another place to change in like a public bathroom. It's demeaning. Yeah, I've had to change clothes in a bathroom before, in a public bathroom before, and it's just something about it that's just kind of demeaning. No matter if you're a male or a female, but for the female character to literally have to be like, you guys can't even give me my own area to do this. Like, it's not even considered that it would ever be necessary to have this.
Yeah, and I also like the line where Souza's still working at night, and Dooley comes out, and he's like, "Hey, Souza, don't you have a life? Go home," or something. And he says, "SSR is my life, sir." Like, he has this line, and I don't have it exactly here. It's somewhere among all my notes. But I kind of like that, because to me, I thought it was here it is. I'm an SSR agent, sir. My job is my life. And to me, it seemed like a very Coulson quote. He's so dedicated to the job. And so I was glad they kind of put that in, that of all the guys in the group, Souza's the one that he's kind of like a bloodhound or something. Like, he gets his fangs into something and he's not letting go until he cracks that case or finds that clue. And that's what makes him such a good agent.
Which leads him to find out, to remember the 2 dots, which leads him to the folder, which leads him to the picture, which leads him to realizing that Peggy is the blonde, which ends the episode and leads us into Cinda Air.
And we have Dottie at the end of the episode too. Don't forget. Dottie.
No, it's just not, it's, we know that she gets the lipstick.
Yeah, she goes through Peggy's stuff, like, she picks up Steve's photo. I'm like, please put that down and don't touch it.
And I have the picture behind me of her pretending to be Peggy Carter here, where she's preparing to try to fool people that way. But we also get to see, at the beginning of this next episode, in 1944, the Leviathan recruitment process, and there she is standing right there, and one of the people in those chairs is this guy that's over here now that came back, and we see how their process is. We don't know what yet. Like we know what the Black Widow process is, but what does being recruited into Leviathan mean? This guy wants out, and they kill him. Again, they do really clever editing because she sticks that knife right under his jaw. Yeah, and they do a really quick edit, but we know what happened, and then to say, yeah, this guy's dead. He's going to join his whole family,
which will be dead soon too. So they're just killing the whole family.
Yep, so this is what happens if you say no. And man, Russia. Russian way of doing things. Ooh, yeah, they don't mess around. And I like that she's right there, all ready to go. But we don't know. Like, we just know that the guy got involved with them, and now he's supposed to be our in. That's what's so important about him, is he knows all this stuff. And we get the whole part about training female assassins and them not being able to wrap their heads around it right away, because it has to be literally the guy saying, well, because women are, can go around unnoticed, and they can disarm you, and they, like with their charms or being, their feminine wiles. I don't think they say that, but that's what the gist of it is that you let your guard down around a female, just like you guys let your guard down around a child. That should have been something that they brought up, but
yeah,
I love how this whole episode is him, talking to Dooley, just getting so personal.
Yeah.
Just really and it's like, even because I said that I didn't notice what had been going on. I had forgotten what happened in this episode until I got that aha moment where it's just like, man, he's really into just talking with this guy. But the not being the notice thing is, I mean, they do finally come around to it. Yeah, I guess you're right. But
yeah, that quote,
Peggy's sitting right there in the room, literally proof. You barely acknowledge her. You don't not acknowledge what she can do, and yet she just came back from Russia alive, successfully, with people. Having Jack just told them that the role she played in it. When they hear training female assassins, they still go, huh? It's just, it's like in one ear and out the other. Like, only so much retained knowledge is retained. Like, you're only as good as the last thing you did.
Yeah, it's like playing in a hockey team. You're only as good as your last shift, right?
Yeah, right.
The quote that they have is that women are often overlooked and taken for granted, is what he says. Although I do like that, Peggy is so on to this training of the girls. Like, when do they train the girls? How old are they when they brought into the program? Do you think they could be in the USA? Do you she's, she knows there's something there.
Yeah.
And I like that, even though Dooley gets mad at her because he is so focused on, we have a prize witness, let's pump all the information we can out of him. He's not even thinking maybe this witness isn't the safest source of information. But he does, to his credit, let Peggy chase her hunch, right? She's like, that, I know there's something here. And he's like, okay, you think there's something here? Chase your hunch. Prove yourself right.
Yeah, I like it. At the same time, I think it was a move to just get her out of there.
Yeah.
If he doesn't really, I don't think necessarily believe in any of it. It's just, she's a dog with a bone in his eyes. Let her chase her tail.
Yeah.
And if something comes out of it, hey, great. If not, she's not bothering me and letting me do what I have to do. We have Souza going to the jail, visiting Buzz from Home Alone again. The character's name is Sheldon. That gives us our confirmation.
Yeah.
And I love that this guy's like, no, that's her. She kicked my butt. I remember this. She's cute. And, she was cute when she wasn't punching me in the face. but don't tell nobody here that I got my butt handed to me by a woman, because it won't go well for me.
Yep.
I don't know if Souza. I think Souza's maybe kind of talking a little bit out of turn, making promises that I don't know if he can keep. Saying he could like get the guys, time there dropped, especially for the kind of crime he committed. But it's one of those things that they just say in those situations to move the plot along, to get the information out. But in this moment, it's like him being so adamant. Look again. Look again. Like, it can't be true. He wants him to say no. He must be no, because if it's yes, if it was truly, truly yes, then she's a traitor and he's a fool. And he's been, he's in love with her. Like, let's just say it right now. He's in love with her, but he respects her too. And he knows what she's capable of. And to have this be true just crushes him.
And he's the only person there that does the research and the grunt work to make the connection. And he's also the only one who even believes that there could be a connection there, because, as you said, he respects her. He knows what she's capable of. And he pulls up her file and he's looking at all of there was a sheet and it was all these skill sets, and it's like check, 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 all the way down, 3 bars of skill sets that she has. So he realizes that she could be. He's the only person who's taking this advice of women are overlooked seriously. I mean, like, hey, Peggy might be this double agent that we're looking for. Of course, he's barking up the wrong tree, but at least she has the right approach. We have the scene with Angie at the L&L automat where she's going over her lines. It's from Dollhouse by Isbin. He's apparently the father of postmodern drama, but and we have that discussion with Peggy where she says she's giving up on acting and she's going to go with a secretary school. And Peggy's like, no, you're really good. You're really good. You have talent. You should stick with it. And that pays off later on in the episode.
Yeah, the only thing I would have thought is that they would have maybe used the fact that she's an aspiring actress, and she's being supposedly a good actress, that I would have liked to have seen her figure out Dottie. Even though, like, we talked about when they meet, it's because Peggy and her were having a fight that, she kind of walked away. I would have liked it for them to have written it so that she kind of is like, and rather than worry about the argument that her and Peggy were having, to kind of show her just going, I don't like this one. There's something off about her. Seeing through the act that somebody's that way, so hardcore. I always used to say somebody who smiles that much has got something to hide. Somebody who just never walks around without a smile, there's something behind that smile that's hiding something less than that's not a smile. But that's just my own thing. And so I always thought, or I was thinking during this, it would have been a nice touch to have, and because it would have helped your character rather than just be, the aspiring actress friend character, to give her something a little bit more to do. Which is use what she's apparently good at to sniff out, even if it's too late. It would have been nice to like have her kind of leading up to, like, just never quite warming up to Dottie. Like, I think that would have been a really nice touch of every time Dottie's around, just kind of blowing her off, like, yeah, whatever you say, like, I don't know, not really buying into her whole thing.
I had a third season, I would have loved to have seen what happened with Angie. Like, I could see her maybe being pulled in for spy work with Peggy somehow.
Oh yeah, because she was on that show. Lindsay Fonseca was on the show Nikita, where she played a spy. So she was good at physical stuff too. So like, she was trained in all that. So if they had added her to do it, the training she would have already had. So she could have been a capable.
I mean, plus we had women who were actresses who also were spies, because they had that, they could go anywhere. They were very well liked and doors open for them and whatnot. So I would have loved to have seen something more with Angie, but we'll see. Maybe season 3. Maybe we'll finally get a season 3 of Carter.
Well, speaking of since we're talking about the spy thing, this is where Peggy and Jarvis are trying to track down Stark's female spy ex-lover, looking for the handcuff marks, having to go. This is our little montage of Jarvis getting slapped and
Yep.
and all the different women that Stark has romanced. With the bracelet thing, again, just reminding me so much of how the Howard Hughes type of way he did things, keeping women everywhere. How Howard is not riddled with STDs is beyond me, because that happened. People were not protective. Howard Hughes was riddled with syphilis to the point where he was insane. And was just slowly dying from it. It's just like Howard's life just does not seem like, I don't know. But this scene was, I'm sorry, I went kind of dark there, but for a fun scene of tracking down who it was. But we do, it does lead to the information, and we find out that this woman named, I think it was Ida. Yeah, Ida. What could have possibly been her first alias in America was she's the one who fooled Howard. Now, why I guess maybe she was just supposed to see what he knew, or possibly go back at some point to kill him or whatnot. I mean, how did Howard survive this? Maybe obviously the plot didn't want him to die yet from her, but
yeah, maybe she's the one that stole the blueprints that ended up in Russia. I don't know.
Yeah.
What I liked about it was the conversation where they go to the jewelers and they're like, "Oh yes, Mr. Stark is like one of our best customers, only the best because he's spending all this money, right? And it's real gold, it's real diamonds." And Jarvis looks at the list and he goes, "Oh, it's less numbers than I expected." And Peggy's like, "How did he meet all these people?" And Jarvis says, "Oh, at the Academy Awards, right? Like he just like picked up 6 girls at the Academy Awards and kept going. I don't know, but
And then the line about Ginger Rogers and her eyes are like dark like the abyss or something. Like cold, dark and cold as the abyss or something like that. Like, woo!
Yeah. You seriously think that Ginger Rogers is a Russian spy? And he's like, "Oh, you didn't see her eyes when I escorted her from Mr. Stark's premise."
But then we get to see, I was like, where are they going with this? Which was her going to the dentist office. And I really didn't, again, like I said, I had forgotten this episode. I didn't know what the point of this whole thing was. I thought this guy knows something, but it's just an interview. I don't even know if she even knew. Like, she's so good at improvising that she opened the door. She didn't care who was in there. But she goes with it long enough to like where the guy touches her leg, like you go the extra mile, right? So it immediately, this character, this dentist, loses any kind of sympathy we feel for what happens to him, even though that's pretty bad for touching a girl's leg. Okay, touching a girl's leg and does not deserve a dentist drill to the face.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like he's clearly done this before. To me, it's a sexual advance. There's something more implied, right? Yeah. If he's saying, "I expect you to go all the way," he's expecting his secretary to be his main squeeze on the side.
Yeah.
But I think it was her just improvising as she was going. Walks in. So, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm here for the interview." Like she just rolls with it, and that guy.
Yeah. And then we realize in the next moment, like where this was going, which was Dooley sitting there with our Russian, what is he, a doctor or he's a psychiatrist? And them just having these conversations about his marriage and never being there, and just it all felt really strange because they're not talking about the information that he knows. He's just getting into Dooley's head.
Yep.
And then, so when we see him open the window and we realize she's got a sniper rifle, we're like, oh my gosh, she's going to shoot this guy right at the SSR. And they completely subvert your expectations here so well. So well. This is like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like at its best subversion level right here, where he is in on it the whole time. Like she's looking through the scope, and when all of a sudden it starts clicking the lights and she's doing Morse code through the scope, I was like, oh my goodness. That is so brilliant. She just needed to be in the building. She knew where he was. And it was how they were just talking, communicating, and him just doing it on the ledge. Was so brilliant. And then to sit down and try to hypnotize Dooley, which almost works.
Yep.
You know, doing this focus thing. And if it wasn't for Souza's interruption, what would have happened here?
And that reminded me,
the whole dynamic of the rest of the episode is Souza's interruption.
Yeah, and that reminded me quite a bit of Dr. Whitehall in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because he was using mind manipulation, like he was trying to put ideas in people's heads. He was trying to retrain Agent 33 with hypnotism. And so we have a similar thing with this doctor where he's using the ring. He's constantly turning the ring on his finger and talking about focus, which again reminded me of the Hydra thing where, you will comply, you will, follow through. So very similar. And I wonder if maybe the Hydra approach has any relation to this.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right? How are they interconnected? What I found was quite interesting about those scenes where he's trying to hypnotize Dooley. I liked that there was an agent, Yoak, who's noticing that Dooley's behaving strangely. And he brings it up to Jack. He's like, hey, isn't it weird that Dooley's been there for so long? What's he talking to? And of course, Jack being Jack, brushes it off completely, as he always does with the lower agents, which we were talking about. And he ends up, Dooley gets put into a trance slightly. And then later we find out this other agent, Yoak, he's put into a trance because he's supposed to watch the doctor. And the doctor just gets all the information he needs. Where are the labs? Where is Stark's material that the SSR confiscated? What are the main exits? How do I have to get out in a hurry? He's trying to get all this information from this lower level agent who just wants to be noticed, wants to be valued, right? He's been pushed aside by everybody else. And so the doctor uses that to get into his psyche, to tap into him. And then we have him tell this agent, go to the bar, order a nice bourbon, and then go step out in front of a bus and kill yourself.
Yep.
So
and it's so great because he was the one that they were supposed to get information from, and the opposite, the complete opposite. They should feel like fools, and they do later, but that's coming up. But yeah, that whole thing it's definitely Hydra. Like Hydra, I don't want to get too deep into that, but Hydra had people everywhere, learning, training, taking things from different, sources to be better at what they do.
Mm-hmm. The fight scene at the automat.
That's where I'm just about to get to, is that Souza coming in, saying, I've got this information. It can't wait. It's the only thing that saves Dooley's life, possibly, is telling them about Peggy. The best part of this scene, in my opinion, with Peggy, is her knowing what's about to happen before it happens. She sees them shuffling people out the door, and she immediately goes, this is the way it happens. This is how you stop somebody from escaping. This is how you minimize damage. This is all of this is happening right now. And it leads to just a tremendous butt kicking of all these guys. She doesn't want to do it, but she's an animal backed into a corner in a way. Like she can't be taken right now. She has to escape because if she escapes, it's all over, and then she's her mission will have failed in her mind.
Yeah.
Blood.
Right. I love the song they put with it. It's a good day. Just happy, cheery music, and she's just cracking heads and jaws, and literally she's in heels, which is why they had like sturdy, chunky heels, not stilettos. You can't do this kind of stuff in stilettos unless you're like Black Widow, I guess. But she's like crawling.
Or the girl from Jurassic World.
Yeah.
That whole movie she was wearing. Sorry, I just remember that whole movie she's fighting dinosaurs in heels.
Although I will say a good quality stiletto, like I had a good pair of Ralph Lauren's, I could run in those babies for a decent amount of time. So
practice.
It depends how well they're made. But generally, no. She's jumping tables and Jarvis is loving it, right? He's like,
yeah. Well, these guys, he gets to see these guys get comeuppance because they brought him in, they threatened his wife, and he's holding the door back, just kind of like, I don't know how long I can do this, but this is great. And not only does she take them out, but then she goes out back, and there's Jack standing there, which is smart of Jack. He tried to tell them, she's way more formidable than you guys think, and just drops him like nothing. I loved it so much.
All that pent up energy and frustration. She finally. Yep. It kind of reminded me of that line from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they're like, did Agent May say all she needed to say? And then May's like, is he still talking or breathing? It's like, oh, I guess she kept some of it to herself.
Yep. That was like at the season 1 finale, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And then we have Daniel. I felt like it was a lot of people like all of a sudden realizing that they should go through the back, but we needed to also have this there too, which is him saying, if you run, I know it's true.
Yeah.
And her not being, her just trying to say, you have to trust me. Like, this is not what it looks like, even though, like, nobody, any reasonable person would not believe her right now. They wouldn't believe her right now. Yeah. This is the problem, the trappings of being a double agent. Even if your goals are the same as the good guys, you're risking looking like a traitor. This is where it was all headed. This is not unexpected territory that we were heading. There was going to be a point where the rug got pulled out from under us. But the way that they did it was so great because they didn't make her a fool. They didn't make her, she wasn't, her mistakes were minimal. And if Jack hadn't tricked Souza, he'd have never seen the dots on her back, never lead him to the picture, never lead him to Sheldon, all those little things. This, that one thing had to happen. Now, I know that's a writer did this and, but it was done smartly. It was done smartly as a little thing that you might not think about led to this, something that she couldn't predict.
Exactly. Yes.
And so that was done really well.
Yeah.
And we get Dooley's fugitive speech, which I really thought was straight out of Tommy Lee Jones from The Fugitive, that I want you to search every farmhouse, hen house, or outhouse for this man. Like, it really felt like he was channeling Tommy Lee Jones here to get their woman at this moment and raid the Griffith house where she's literally on the ledge. I love that, and listening to Angie lie and cry and lie about grandma and again, proving what they said at the beginning, women don't get noticed. And they're still falling for it because they just don't want to, they can't believe their male brains have been trained to not notice these things. So she's able, because to me, that was not a very good performance. I thought she just suddenly, but they're so trained to just be uncomfortable around it that they just have to get it to stop, to get it to go away. that it helps Peggy out. Now, not for long, but I love this because this is where, Angie gets to realize she doesn't work for the phone company.
Yes, and she had her suspicions. That's what I like. It doesn't play Angie off as a fool. She's smart. She recognizes things. She knew something was up. She just didn't know what was up. And I also love how loyal Angie is. Like, she doesn't know. Peggy could be a fugitive from justice for all she knows, but she, I don't know, trusts her. She knows her, knows that as a person, Peggy doesn't seem to be, a questionable person. I mean, she could have been dealing with a dottie, but she trusts Peggy, and I love that. And it's kind of sad because it's almost like their little goodbye moment, right?
Yeah.
Where they split ways.
Yeah,
but I love that. I love that she asks Jack, like, "What's your grandma's name?" And he says, "Gam Gam." which made me think of like first episode Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where Sky's like, "Does your grandmother know you do this?" And Ward's like, "No." But yeah, no, it was great to see her, and she manages to get Scabe's blood. She manages to escape. I love how Miriam turns on her as soon as she sees the hole in the wall. She's like, "Oh, I knew she wasn't good."
Yep, always expecting the worst. Them, kind of manhandling her out the door, like, keep her in her room for your safety. Like trying to make sure that they had to say that just in case they had to cover their butts in some way. They just needed her gone because she was just in the way. But unfortunately, this is where Dottie and Peggy run into each other in the hallway.
At one point, though, is that Miriam making such a fuss warns Peggy that the police are coming. So let's do one thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For her, for Peggy, it works. For the cops, it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Because she's, there was no way that Miriam wasn't going to be with the cops, like almost as like some kind of wish fulfillment. Like, see, ladies, I can bring the thunder down here. I love how also, she's got them trained. Angie's giving the speech verbatim. No men above, above the first floor. So they know that this, if this girl says it, they know that it means business. Men are not allowed above here. So it's, again, they believe that part of it. But this is where Dottie and Peggy run into each other, and man, yep, with the lipstick, and now again, they don't. There they have Dottie standing over Peggy. What happened? Oh, she just fainted, and they don't even think again. It's a woman standing there. I don't see this. Why don't we question? Why is Peggy passed out? Why are you standing over her? They don't even think to say, we have some questions for you. We need to hold you and find out what exactly happened, because there's not a mark on her, and you say she fainted. Like, some sort of bells and whistles need to go off. But again, like, the whole point I think they keep pounding in this episode is these men don't notice women. They just keep underestimating every single woman in their peripheral, in their vicinity. And to the point where now they've got, yes, they were always going to arrest Peggy. We were always going to get to this point where they were going to be interrogating her. But now there's the bad guy standing right there, looking vaguely, trying to look like innocent, but they had to give us a little bit of like more of a blank look on Dottie's face, so that when Peggy's looking at her through the window as they drive away, it's like they needed to have that acknowledgement of, I'm the one getting arrested, and you're going, you're just standing there like nothing.
Yeah. Okay, on the one hand, they save her life because Dottie had a knife. She was ready to shank her and kill her. Like, it was lights out for Peggy.
Well, at the very least, it would have been a really great fight. But
Well,
it was after the kiss. It was after the kiss.
it was after the kiss, and
You know,
Peggy
yeah. So there
drunk.
wouldn't have been much of a fight. You're right. That's smart. Kiss her first, because then you can stab her.
And it's something that isn't expected, right? She's like,
Yeah.
okay, Peggy, see you at dinner. And Peggy's thinking she's giving me a hug, okay. And then she kisses her. And it's like, what in the world? And then she realizes, you're wearing my brand. Oh no. And Peggy puts two and two together. You're the spy. You're the Russian spy I've been looking for. Literally my next door neighbor. So.
All right. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, are there any other little things that we need to go over?
I just liked all the montage scene of all the women mad about Stark, and that that Howard is the kind of man that he doesn't even exit a relationship gracefully. He's just there to get what he wants, and then he doesn't even have the decency and courtesy to, say goodbye. He leaves the dirty work up to Jarvis, which, shows what kind of a person he is.
Which carries over to his son, where he not only has his computer Jarvis, but he's got Pepper, who early on does the same thing as Jarvis to just usher the women in and out, and Happy. So Tony, you actually upped the game. He's got 3 people that take care of all those things. Howard had Jarvis. That's it.
Yeah, Pepper has that line about, I do anything that Mr. Stark needs me to do, including sometimes taking out the trash.
Yep.
Is ironic that she's, the person who's the trash in this scenario is Tony Stark.
Right.
Right? Anyway, what else did I love? I liked, I guess, the fact that Souza was making these connections. It was so sad that kind of scene where Souza catches her and she can't explain what's going on, and you kind of see his heart breaking a bit, where he's like, I really believed in you. I thought you were this great person. And in the next episode, we'll see all of that kind of backlash and anger from everybody come to Peggy.
But like most things, it has to get so much worse before it can get better. So we're seeing things getting really worse. And then, so next week, we'll be talking about the last 2 episodes of season 1, episodes 7 and 8. So the season finale talk will be next week. And so that's it. There was still a lot to talk about here. For these 2 episodes. We get so much more about the villains. We get some really unexpected stuff. We get some great callbacks from the movies with the Howling Commandos. We get great character work from, even the male characters that I just have such a hard time with. Just I know they're portrayed accurately, but it's just so hard watching people behave this way and treat women this way. And I know that maybe some people might say that I'm pandering, but it's true. It's just awful. But so great. Just such great writing. And it just bums me out that there's only, after next week, there's only 10 episodes, and then it's over. And then, we got the one shot to talk about as well. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank again, as always, our agent Corrie Shoemaker here, who joins me on this journey as we look back into this show. So don't forget to check back. This show usually uploads on Friday, so check Friday afternoon or late morning for this episode to be up. I don't know why I'm telling you this. If you've made it this far, you're already watching it.
Share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff. So if you're liking it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to go over to Corrie's stuff. Corrie, again, why don't you remind everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Soothing Scriptures or at Biblical Bliss, or you can find my author page at CL Shoemaker. So that's online as well. And if you want your own knock 'em out lipstick, just like Peggy, Besame is a company in the States. They make the original lipstick that Haley Atwell wears for the Peggy Carter role. And then they released a few unique types of lipsticks with the print from the actual show, which you can't get anymore, but you can still get that color. So if you're interested, it's called Red Velvet. And yeah, so that's kind of cool. If you have a girlfriend that likes Peggy Carter, that would be a good Christmas gift.
All right. Awesome. Yep. So somewhere around here, you're going to see some videos pop up for other things on the channel and the little button to hit subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we will be back next week for season 1's finale. Should be a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll also be on Dee's reviews on the 15th to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2 with Dee, Darren, Jake, and Don Willie. That's going to be live at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time on the 15th. Also on my channel, we've got His Dark Materials on Mondays. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.